My name is Emily Hartley. I'm a GME outreach advisor, and my team here at Providence serves both residents and programs across the US by providing business resources that prepare you for your job search. So I'd like you to meet our subject matter expert for today, Nick Ball. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you all for having me. My name is Nick Ball. I am the supervisor of locums administration for Providence as a health system. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that all means, but we have a bit of a unique setup out in the industry, and I'm excited to share some of that knowledge with you.
Awesome. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I am going to give just a quick overview of who we are and why we do what we do. Our GME outreach team is a vertical of Provider Solutions and Development, which is a nationally recognized recruiting arm of Providence St. Joseph Health System. We've worked with our own Providence residents as well as residents across the country for years. And from that work, it became really evident that across the board, there's a gap in resident preparedness for the marketplace. So that's where the GME outreach team comes in. We create tools for you so that you can approach your job search proactively and show up to recruiting conversations equipped to put your best foot forward. So our goal is to help you present as a standout candidate, find that perfect job, and ultimately achieve career fulfillment, because the more you love your job, the better care we believe you'll provide to your patients. So power hours, like you are here at present today, are one of the many resources that we have available to you. And we're going to do a deep dive on locum tenens today. So with that, let's jump right in. In this hour, we're going to be covering 4 key categories. The locums lifestyle, because it is unique. So we want to make sure you have a full picture, a very clear picture of what that lifestyle entails. Key considerations to make sure you're thinking through before pursuing locums, and how to set yourself up for financial success with locums, as well as how to select an agency and assignment that is right for you. Lastly, we want this time to be valuable to you and want to make sure that you leave here today with all your questions answered. So we'll have dedicated Q&A time at the end, but please feel free to raise your hand, come off mute, drop questions in the chat. We're happy to answer those as we go as well. So Nick, let's have you kick us off by providing a comprehensive overview of what a locum contract is and what that entails.
Absolutely. So the locums lifestyle is such a robust topic. Locum tenens, in a nutshell, is the Latin term for in place of. And historically, what that has meant is a provider, whether a physician, APC, replacing or stepping into somebody's shoes in a short-term basis to cover their patient populations, to provide a level of service and be able to bill under their numbers for a short period of time. Over the years, that has really adapted and grown. In some of our facilities, we have locum providers who have worked for a month and a half. We have some that have worked for 2 years. So the in place of mentality is still there, but what that terminology is out in the industry, what each healthcare organization utilizes as far as terms go, could vary. And we'll talk a bit about that as we go through this. But ultimately, you're there to be that hero, to fill a need that hospital or clinic needs, again, whether it's short-term or long-term. From a lifestyle perspective, this is where you as a provider entering the marketplace really get to start to decide what it is that's important to you. Are you looking for a situation that will allow you to be that road warrior, that will have you travel from site to site nationally, sometimes internationally, to explore other opportunities, to explore other environments, healthcare organizations, cities, towns, lifestyles? That is certainly an opportunity that comes with being a locums provider. You can also choose to do locums in your backyard or your neighboring communities and just stick to a smaller geographic area. So you will be able to define for yourself what it is that you're looking for. and how you want locums to really integrate into your lifestyle, again, short-term or long-term. I love this next question here. Who do we typically see doing locums work? It's anybody from coming out of residency to retirement. I think in locums, you typically do see a few stronger buckets or categories of individuals that are doing it. You have a number of individuals that come out of residency and are looking to sort of test the waters and figure out what it is that they want to commit to long-term. So you have individuals there doing locums. You have a large population of individuals who have entered the later chapters of their career, and they're looking to wind down and still supplement themselves financially a bit. And so you will find people in their retirement years doing locum assignments on shorter term stints, sometimes longer term stints, because they get to be their own boss. They get to pick and choose the assignments and the dates that they want to work. There's a lot of flexibility that comes with that. And so they just don't want to give up on patient care and that driving force that brought them into medicine in the first place, but also don't want to be bound to the commitment of a full-time position throughout the year. So you do have a number of people that do this. And then there's everything in the middle that supplements the rest of those little categories. Lastly, what's appealing to residents, the typical profile of a locum physician. I think as a resident coming into the locums market, the most appealing topics are going to be being able to really try a health system or a city or a specialty or a niche of your specialty before you commit to it. It will also allow you the chance to have a little bit more financial freedom by probably making a little bit more money as a locum tenens provider than you would if you were employed. We'll talk, I keep saying we'll talk about this as we come. There's more that we'll discuss. There is a little volatility that comes with that topic as well. But ultimately, locum providers do make more upfront. And so you do have a little bit more chance to make more compensation as a locum tenens provider if you're willing to roll the dice. I'll put it that way.
Nice. Thank you, Nick. So our attendees might still be in the process of defining what they want out of their career. So should they choose locums, what are the key considerations that they should really seriously think through from your perspective?
I think some of the key considerations that you want to highlight are going to be, again, how long do you want to do this for? Are you looking to be a career locums? Is that natural traveling lifestyle or changing lifestyle something that interests you? Or are you looking to set up roots somewhere? If you really want to put down roots somewhere, locum tenens probably isn't the right long-term lifestyle for you. Similarly, where you want to work. So if I'll just use Portland as an example, because this is where I live. If you lived in the Portland area and your intent was to stay within Portland, I strongly encourage providers to look elsewhere for locum tenens work and not to do locums in your backyard. The reason for that is there's a lot of contractual pieces that come into play when you're working as a locums, especially through a locum tenens agency. And one of those is an ownership of relationship between you and the health system by that agency. And so the health system then is financially bound to paying buyout fees pertaining to your contract if they want to employ you. That can hinder your ability to obtain full-time employment in the geographic area that you're interested in. So if you do locums and you want to long-term stay in your city that you're in, I would encourage looking at locums elsewhere. Key takeaway. The other part of it, again, talking about the financial aspect, where I mentioned that there's some volatility to it, is how comfortable are you with understanding that you could make more as a locums, but at the same time, your assignment could be canceled at the last minute, and then you're left without that financial revenue stream coming in. If you're okay with that, if you are a budgetary person, if you can plan ahead and you've set up your rainy day fund or your emergency fund, you will probably do quite well because you've planned for those situations as they come about. If you are an individual that is a little less risk averse, again, going the locums route may not be the right consideration for you compared to other options that could be out there. One of which would be working as an employed per diem or an employed locums through a health system. They manage your W-2, your payroll deductions, all of that. You're employed by that health system. You still have the flexibility of being on call, so you can choose if you want to pick up shifts or not. But there's a little less financial risk that comes through that, because it's also less of a financial investment by the health system to go an employed route versus going through an agency or employing a locums directly as an independent contractor. From there, if you have chosen to do locums, I think your key considerations are going to be, again, how much do you want to travel? Are you wanting to be your own independent contractor, carry your own malpractice plan? Or do you want to be represented as an independent contractor through an agency, in which case there's a portion of that fee that they take as part of the process? So how do you want to go that? There's benefits both ways. I would say, again, the risk of doing locums in your backyard, we talked about, but long-term, it's really going to be how you want to set it up for yourself. If you want to be your own voice, if you want an agency to help support some of the functions for you, or if you want to go a little bit more of the cautious route.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Nick.
Nick, can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
Can you just clarify, just if you can give an example of why it's why it's not advisable to do locums in local areas, like a concrete example?
Yeah. So let's say you come out of residency. I'm just going to pick I'll use hospitalist as an example. You come out of residency and you choose in the Portland area to accept a position doing a locum tenens assignment as a hospitalist through an agency. The hospital likes you. The hospital wants to hire you. However, there's, in addition to your contractual negotiations about compensation, now a fee that the hospital will have to pay to the locum tenens agency that is representing you to buy out your contract so they can employ you. That fee, depending on specialty, can be anywhere from $20,000 upwards to 6 figures. It can be a very costly situation, again, depending on how well the health system has negotiated those contracts with the agency for buyout fees, and then what that looks like regarding your contract with the agency, because the agency may hold you to a contract buyout fee as well. So not only does the health system have to pay, it is very possible that you would have to pay the agency to be released from your contract with them too. So that's why I say, if you are targeting a specific area for where you want to land long-term, there are more than enough locum tenens assignments elsewhere. I would target those first for your experience, for your revenue generation, for whatever key factors that you're taking into mind, and then keep your geographic targeted area separate from that so that you can focus purely on your recruitment aspect there or your hiring aspects there.
Great question. Great question. Nick, we talk a lot about locums tenens being the road warrior lifestyle. Is there anything you can you expand on that a little bit more?
Absolutely. And before I do, I see James had a question in the chat box just relating to those fees. As a general rule of thumb, yes, almost every locums agency will have a fee structure that they've negotiated with the health system. Again, it can vary from health system to health system. What you won't see is usually the contract that the agency has with the health system. That contractual conversation is going to be different than what the agency has with you and that contract. These may not always speak apples to apples together. So most agencies won't charge a fee of you, but will charge a fee of the health system, because their goal is to retain the book of business that they've recruited. They don't want to give you away as a provider because they make more money if they're assigning you to locums assignments versus, having you go and take an assignment elsewhere. To your question about the road warrior, I'm sorry, refresh my memory. What was your question again? Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So locums lifestyle, we always talk about the road warrior lifestyle. So for those who are listening, for their benefit, what does that really mean?
Yeah, so there obviously would be a lot of travel that would come into play if you choose to take an assignment outside of your hometown. Depending on specialty, some specialties and the request of locums can be different than others. If you're primary care, you may be requested to do a long-term assignment, 6 months, 5 days a week in clinic, compared to general surgery that you're asked to do one weekend of call once a month. So the travel could be different. Generally speaking, you will want to determine how much travel you want to do per month. If you're doing a long-term assignment, such as that primary care example, you would have one flight in, one flight out, and they would most likely put you in some sort of long-term accommodation, an Airbnb home, a corporate housing unit, something of that nature, for a longer period of time because they know that you're coming in, versus, let's say you're a hospitalist coming in for 1 week. They will fly you in, fly you out, but you may be put up in a hotel for that week. That road warrior mentality comes into play because it then is going to be a factor based on what type of accommodation and comfort level you're willing to accept. So if you're somebody who is going to want to have a house with a hot tub and all those fun amenities and creature comforts, you'll want to make sure that you're addressing those as part of the assignment before you commit to an assignment, because it may not always play out to be that way. It could be that you're put in a hotel for a month. In turn, you're making more money for the sacrifice of some of those creature comforts.
Excellent. Thank you so much for giving a little more color there.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, I also frequently get asked by residents about what the financial incentive looks like for locums. There's the perception that you make a lot of money, and that's often a draw. So can you talk us through the financial benefits as well as the pitfalls, the potential pitfalls that come with a locums contract?
Absolutely. So locums, to be completely candid, from a health system perspective, can be considered a necessary evil. It's an expensive route to go for coverage, but as a health system, our end goal always is patient care and quality patient care. So we recognize that for patients to be seen, we have to pay more sometimes for that. That then trickles down to you as a provider, because you will probably get paid more as an independent contractor doing locums, just due to the fact that it's not a long-term commitment to you. This is a one-off assignment that they're looking to fill, and you as an independent contractor would make all of that money up front, and then it's up to you to manage your payroll deductions, your tax deductions, all of that at the end of the year. So the agency will not withhold any payroll deductions or any tax withdrawals for you. That will be completely up to you to plan for come tax season each year. Similarly, as mentioned before, there is always the ability up until the day of that assignment could be canceled. And if that assignment is canceled, there may or may not be a financial recourse for you, depending on how far in advance it's canceled. More often than not, you'll find that if an assignment is canceled within 30 days of the start date, there is some sort of financial compensation to you for those days canceled. If it's beyond 30 days, more often than not, it's the message of, I'm so sorry, but this is off the table now. And so now you're stuck having to figure something out at the last minute, whether that's going to be an emergency assignment somewhere else, if you have planned for that and you are financially stable to make it through until your next assignment, what that will look like for you. I often caution people entering the locums industry to think about the fact that a lot of health systems, most health systems, will average about 90 days for privileging and credentialing for an assignment. Some can obviously do it faster than that with emergency privileges and other factors, but I caution most locums, when you're factoring in what your rainy day fund will be, consider the fact that it could be about a 3-month turnaround before your next assignment, simply because you'll have to get presented, considered, confirmed for it, and then you have to go through all the privileging and credentialing processes before they'll allow you to start.
All right, awesome. If it sounds, so to our listeners, if locum sounds like the right path for you and you think you'll choose specifically the agency route for your locums agreement, then we want to equip you for that selection process. So Nick, how would you advise residents who are working towards selecting an agency partner?
It's a great question. I think first and foremost, I would tell you, you call the shots. It may not feel that way when you talk to an agency specifically, but you're the one that they're trying to place. You have the power in this conversation, in this negotiation, to whatever extent is available. Obviously, sometimes contracts dictate certain things, but ultimately, you want to lead into the conversation with a strong understanding of what you're willing to give, what you're willing to take, and essentially what you're willing to put up with, somewhere there in the middle. You don't have to sign with an agency. You don't have to select an assignment just because you're presented to it. If you get through a phone conversation with the health system and you decide that perhaps the patient population isn't who you want to work with, the trauma level doesn't match your comfort level, it's whatever the case could be, you are not committed to an acceptance assignment. So you really do have the power as a locum tenens provider to be very thoughtful, methodical, and selective about who you work with and where you go. From there, how you determine working with an agency it is really going to be one based on your gut feeling with them. I mean, there is something to be said that a lot of locum agencies will feel like a used car salesman when they're talking with you, and you won't feel like you have a partnership. Partner with agencies, partner with agency representatives that you feel like you really connect with and you converse with and you have a relationship with. That will go a long way for you just in that general trust level. Beyond that, it's really going to come down to the contractual terms they set in front of you. Larger locum agencies are going to be a little bit more flexible in their contracts because they have the internal resources and bandwidth to overcome certain processes. For example, a large locum agency may book all of your travel for you, do your timekeeping, do some of those things for you, whereas a smaller locum agency may or may not have those internal resources to dedicate to you. They may say you book your travel and then you submit your receipts and we'll reimburse you for it. But then if you're at the airport and a flight gets canceled, who do you call for help? If you're willing to negotiate and kind of handle those emergency situations yourself, great. If you're not comfortable with that, that would be something to consider when you're selecting which locum agency you want to work with. Similarly, the buyout fees that we talked about, understanding, you may not always understand what the health system has to pay the agency, but I would strongly advise not signing with an agency that would require you to pay a contract buyout to them if you're hired by a health system. In my mind, that is absolutely obnoxious for an agency to suggest, and there are way too many agencies out there that you could partner with that will not hold you financially responsible for taking an assignment that you feel like is going to be, or taking a long-term career that is going to be matching you and your passion with purpose. For all of us, patient care should be the end result. You should not be a victim in that process. Outside of that, other things to consider are going to be how many state licenses you're going to want to carry, if they're going to support you with licensure, and getting DEIs or transitioning your DEIs, if they're going to compensate you for short notice cancellations or not, that will be part of the contract to consider. All of those things are things that you're going to want to really take a keen look at and make sure that the contractual terms match what you're looking for. Similarly, with an assignment, kind of moving on to step 5 here, understanding those ownership clauses. If you can, if the agency is willing to divulge that to you, what the health system would have to pay, then I think that's good to know, especially if it's targeting something in your backyard or close to your backyard. If it sounds like it's going to be a lower contract buyout fee, that may be a little less risk averse or a little less risky for you than it would be if it was a $75,000 contract buyout. So they may divulge that to you. Again, understanding the cancellation policies that are responsible for the health system, and truly understanding what it is that the health system is looking for in a provider. So a health system, I tell all of our internal business partners when they're presented with locums, from paper, select the ones that you're interested in, and then have a phone conversation with them. Really make sure that it's both a professional fit, a cultural fit, and a technical skills fit. The locum provider should have a clear understanding of what the assignment is going to require of them before they even come into it. So you, in this process, have the ability to essentially interview the health system as well as them interviewing you. So understand what it is that you're looking for, what your comfort levels are going to be. Do you want to work with the support staff? Are you okay flying solo? Who do you call, in case of an emergency there at the facility? What does that support look like? All of those things are factors you're going to want to consider. And while I would love to be able to provide you with the laundry list up front to say, hey, here's all the questions you should ask, it's going to vary by specialty, by assignment, by location. But the more you do locums, the more you'll chip away at those questions to ask. There will be some assignments that are going to feel clunky. There will be some assignments that feel absolutely wonderful. It's a learning experience just like everything else in life.
Love it. Thank you, Nick. So we are moving into our open Q&A time. Like we mentioned at the beginning, we want to make sure that that you leave with all your questions answered. We also had a few people just join, so I want to go back through the chat. So forgive us for those of you if we're repeating ourselves here, but we want to make sure everyone has their questions answered. So Nick, we had the one question: do all locums agencies have those fees that you referenced?
I think that was the one that we answered earlier. Yes.
So for those who just joined.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Yeah,
so
it's all good.
That question came up in the conversation around contract buyout fees pertaining to a locums agency or a locums assignment. Yes, almost always there will be some sort of fee a health system will have to pay to a locums agency if you are hired during an assignment. Or I should probably back up and highlight this part as well. The ownership terms count regardless if you're working an assignment. If you give authorization for an agency to present you to a health system, that agency now has ownership of your relationship to that health system, whether it's the full system or the single work site. So certainly when deciding which agencies to work with or which assignments to take, understand, are they representing you on behalf of the entire health system or simply that work site? Our contract that we have heavily negotiated will not allow an agency to own a provider for our entire health system. I will not clear a provider for presentation and allow that agency to own them for 51 hospitals and close to 1,000 clinics. It's not going to happen. So ours is site and specialty specific. That may or may not be the case with other health systems. So that's a factor to consider. As far as those fees go, there is going to be a period of time that they'll own your relationship, whether presented or worked. Find out what that period of time is and find out what that fee will be to the best of your ability. typically there won't be a fee that you would have to pay directly to a locums agency as part of that contract buyout.
Excellent. Nick, for those who just joined, could you repeat the advice you gave about local locums work?
Yes. So with regard to where you select to do an assignment and how a agency will own a relationship, your relationship to a health system, if your long-term plan is to target a full-time position or a career in your backyard. So for example, again, I live in Portland. If I was looking to work long-term in Portland, it would probably be to my benefit not to select to do or to be presented for locum assignments in Portland, simply so that I'm not hindering a health system's ability to recruit me because of those financial contract buyout fees. So I would encourage looking elsewhere. There's enough opportunity nationally for you to be able to do locums and not select your backyard.
Okay, thank you, Nick. And in follow-up to that, would that advice that you just gave change if a resident didn't work with an agency and we're just contracting directly with the places they're working?
That's a great question. So no, if you represent yourself as an independent contractor and sign with the health system as a locum tenens directly and you don't go through an agency, then those contractual terms will be completely up to whatever contract you extend to the health system or that they extend to you. More often than not in those cases, no, there would not be a contract buyout fee. You're simply signing an agreement based on the fees that you would bill for your service for that assignment. Where that sometimes becomes a sticking point, and I'll use our health system as an example, is that current state, our health system is not able to offer malpractice insurance to 1099 contractors directly. So while I would love to be able to hire my own locum tenens providers directly for the health system, I could not offer malpractice. So we take that through an agency, so the agency can offer the malpractice insurance under their plan. And in turn, you are now bound by whatever agency contractual requirements they have.
Excellent. Thanks, Nick. And thank you for the question, Matthew. Great question. Next question, could you contract to do locums type work directly in the case that you gave?
So yes, kind of building upon that, you could. If you set up your own malpractice plan, you carry your own malpractice insurance, then you could absolutely go out and represent yourself as your own locum tenens agency, a single person agency, to a health system and contract with them directly. Some health systems may be able to take you under their malpractice. And if that's the case, then yes, you absolutely could contract with them directly as well. Where it becomes a little bit more of a challenge, unless you're doing it in your backyard or you have relationships built, is being able to get the sense of what health system has a need and which one doesn't. And that's the benefit that agencies have, is that they have these relationships, they're networking with health systems all day, every day, to find out what needs are coming. And then they reach out to their book of business and present it to you. They're the middleman in that case. And so unless you are wanting to do those cold calls to health systems and try to get your foot in the door, it can be a little bit more of a challenge to represent yourself directly outside of where you may know people.
Excellent. Thank you for the question, RD. Are locums typically only in rural areas and or small health systems?
That is a great question. And I think sometimes that's a misconception. No. I will tell you, most of the locums assignments that we have within Providence are in our major metro areas. So we have heavy utilization in Portland, Southern California, Northern California around Santa Rosa, Napa, Sonoma area, as well as Humboldt County, Eureka. We have it in the Seattle metro area in Eastern Washington. That's where we see most of our pockets of locums utilization happening. So for us, no, there will be some health systems that certainly use more locums in more rural areas because they have a challenge with recruiting providers. And so you may find longer term assignments being pitched in those areas versus shorter term assignments that might be pitched in major metro areas like ourselves. But it does vary.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Is there a list of specific locums agencies that are reputable?
There is an organization called NALTO, NALTO, and if you go to their website, you will find which agencies have subscribed to be a NALTO member. Typically speaking, those agencies have all agreed to abide by NALTO rules of engagement and kind of fair practice, ethics, ways of working. I may have other thoughts on some of those agencies, but that's just from personal experience. I think all in all, NALTO is a good kind of base organization to try to hold everybody to a professional way of working. And that's where I would start when looking at locum agencies to partner with, is are they part of a NALTO list?
Great, thank you. And Nick, could you speak a little bit more about how malpractice insurance works across multiple different areas and states?
Yeah, so again, essentially, you're going to need malpractice insurance wherever you go. Some health systems may be able to offer it to you, some may not. Ours, for example, is not able to. What you will find again is by going through a locum tenens agency, they will have a malpractice plan that they sign you under, and they will administer your malpractice insurance for you as part of that assignment. So above and beyond what you're getting paid, the locums agency will have a markup that they administer when billing the health system. So what you're getting paid is not what a health system is paying. Health system is paying more. And part of that is to pay for malpractice insurance, to pay for travel, housing, car, to pay for administrative services and all of those things. So if you are not willing, again, to explore and hold your own malpractice plan, then the locums agency will do that for you. And that is one of the benefits of going through locums agencies versus going your own route.
Thank you. We have another question here. A main thing that my attendings and other recently graduated surgeons tell me is that a very important thing in your first job out of residency is to be sure you have quality partners that can help you through the growing pains of just starting out. So the primary question here is, I've got a graduating general surgery resident. Are there opportunities to into an already functioning practice that has senior surgeons that could be available for assistance and advice, or are locums jobs for surgeons generally necessitating self-sufficiency?
That will also depend on the location. I would say that in a larger metro area, such as the ones that we typically practice within, you will have a stronger resource pool, internal resource pool to tap if or when needed, versus possibly a rural market that is trying to get somebody in because they just have a blaring gap in coverage. So it's a bit of a yes and no answer to that. This is where I say it's really up to you when selecting an assignment to key into those pieces, such as support functions, and whether or not they're going to be resources available to you if that's of consideration to you. Starting as a locum tenens provider out of residency, I would imagine most people's desire is going to be to have other resources that you can tap or people to turn to if and when needed. So be selective and hold for that right assignment if or when needed. They are out there, you will find them. I'll use Northern California as a good example for us. We have a strong anesthesiology program in Northern California, and they will have 3 to 4 anesthesiologists on call at a given time, which is great because then you have other doctors on call with you that you can turn to because they have multiple ORs. Same with general surgery. We have multiple hospitals here in the Portland area. So if or when needed, you have a sister hospital that's in the area that you can tag or tap into for advice if they're not even right there on site with you. So be selective, know exactly what your comfort level is when going into locums, and don't be ashamed to hold true to that. There's no harm in going what you feel to be the safest route in locums as possible.
Great, thank you. I'm going to do a quick little anecdote here. There's about 7 of you whose handle says Emily Hartley, which is my name. So you could do us a huge favor. We would love to address you by your wonderful name and honor the question you're asking. And so if you could rename, if you see Emily Hartley as your handle, if you could rename it to your name, that would be so helpful. I appreciate it. And I'm so sorry for that glitch. All right, we have a next question here. Is what's the process of getting started? And in follow up to that, how long before one would want to start working on getting all things together in preparation for taking a locums contract?
Again, going a locums route, the locums agency will do a lot of the legwork for you, especially with regard to privileging and credentialing with the health system. They will complete packets for you and gather documents for you and do some of that. I would plan at least 90 days before starting an assignment to get through all of those bits and pieces. I would probably give you another month at least to get through contractual conversations with the locums agency, credentialing with the locums agency, which is a much faster process than going through a health system. That's just more of a risk analysis for them. But getting through all of that, getting through presentation process and selecting an assignment. So I would give yourself a good month to accept an assignment, and then another couple months to be able to get through whatever hospital processes there may be. Again, some hospitals may be able to get you turned around and started within a week. So you'll know that at time of assignment. But generally speaking, from a comfort level and planning appropriately, I would plan on that.
Fantastic. And how long do the contract terms tend to last in reference to the agency's ownership over the provider and health system relationship? And an example here, just to further clarify, is if a physician were to decide they wanted to work permanently with the health system, and if they were working as a locum, how long would they need to wait to sign with the agency without having to pay fees?
So generally speaking, I would say that most locum agencies are probably looking at a 2-year term with regard to that. So the locums agency will own your relationship to the health system for either 2 years from the date of presentation, or if you accept an assignment, 2 years from the last date of your last assignment. So if you just worked a locums assignment and you finished on April 31st, then they will own your relationship until May 1st, 2024. Otherwise, the health system will have to pay a contract buyout fee if they choose to employ you at any time during that period of time. And often it will also include if you engage in contract negotiations during that period of time. So the health system could say, great, we're going to extend an offer to you and have you start in a year to bypass that. But the agency will say, well, you signed the offer during that 2-year period. The only reason the health system knows about you is because of the introduction that we made and the assignment we placed you at. Therefore, we're going to take our cut. Us as a health system have negotiated that down to 1 year. 1 year from date of presentation, 1 year for last day of their last assignment. And where I talk about things being a little different with Providence compared to other health systems, we have centralized all of our locum tenens administration, all 51 hospitals, all close to 1,000 clinics. All of their requests, needs, and operations for locums come through me and my team. And then we work as a centralized function within the health system to ensure they're getting the providers that they need, that we're managing contract issues that come about, any negotiations that happen, and that everyone's playing fair in the sandbox.
Great. And is that, and last follow-up to that particular question is it longer than the duration of a locum contract, would you say?
Yes. So again, that will extend beyond your locum's contract for whatever that period of time is.
Great. Okay. And Dr. Ram, you mentioned you
Good question.
have,
Yeah. Thanks, Emily and Nick. So if I'm getting started and I want to compare these different locum agencies, and I'm trying to decide, okay, which one's going to pay me more, or compare salaries, like is there like a website where I can compare the average salary for my specialty or per the region? Like basically how does the comparison work?
There aren't a lot of great resources out there for you to compare at. Unfortunately, locum tenens agencies like to be like the Wizard of Oz and try to keep everything behind the curtain. They don't want to open the curtain and show you all the secrets. So it is a little harder to try to find what the market holds, what going rates are. I will say Glassdoor is a good resource just to look up companies and see reviews of what people are saying about companies. That does include locum tenens agencies. People do post their feedback there as far as working experience. Outside of that, where you'll see the difference is smaller agencies may be able to pay you a little bit more than a larger agency. The larger agency may be, again, excuse the crass term, but a little greedier with regard to the markup they want to charge and what they want to pay you compared to a smaller agency. But then the smaller agency will put a little bit more of the onus and workload on your plate versus doing it for you. So really where you're going to find is by shopping around for a few different agencies, and where you're willing to sacrifice compensation for effort on your part.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. I wish I had a better answer for you. I really would love to go out there and start a website of my own that was able to give all those details, but it wouldn't go very far.
Another question here. Do you need to be board certified prior to starting a locums assignment?
That will also depend on the medical staff office of the hospital or the clinic that you're working with. So Providence, as a rule, will accept providers that are either board certified or board eligible within their first 5 years. After that first 5 years, they either need to be certified or we don't consider them as being able to pass for credentialing and privileging. Some health systems don't have that same requirement, so it will absolutely vary. Most will either say we're only looking at board certified individuals, or we'll take board eligible, and that would include you coming out of residency.
Fantastic. And is it reasonable to expect that individuals for these agencies have some understanding of specialties?
Yes. So typically the agency recruiters or the representatives that you're working with are focused only on one specialty to 3 or 4 specialties. They will have a very narrow focus, especially with larger organizations. So if you looked at your Comp Health, Weatherby, locumtenens.com, those agencies, the number of individuals they have working for them is dramatic. And so when you're working with a representative of that agency, they are focused on general surgery and possibly 1 or 2 other specialties as well, but they will know the ins and outs of your specialty and will probably ask you the questions or ask the health system the questions about the assignment that you may not think of asking yourself.
Thank you for the question, Dr. Abdel. And Nick, you mentioned an ALTO list for reputable agencies. Does that cover domestic assignments or international opportunities as well?
Sorry, and I'm going to put that in here as well. So it's NALTO, NALTO. So I just put it in the chat for everybody, and I'll pull the website here in a second and share it out as well. It covers locum tenens agencies. Some agencies such as Global Locums also do international assignments as well. And they are a member of NALTO, I believe. So yes, it will include agencies that do international travel and international assignments for you too.
Fantastic. Thank you for the question, Dr. McGilligan. All right, we have one more here. Anywhere to find average locums compensation per specialty?
No, unfortunately, not to my knowledge. It will again vary dramatically based on the size of the organization and what their setup is. So if they're self-funded for malpractice versus if they go through an agency for malpractice insurance, it will depend on the location. It will depend on the season, all of those things. Where it's really going to probably be to your benefit is to shop around for your first few assignments, especially, ask or, inquire about some specialty specific assignments in various areas, get a sense of what the going rate is. And then from there, you can, kind of dictate in a sense what it is that you're looking for. And that may or may not match what the health system is willing to pay. We have a rate sheet that we maintain that is specific to billings, what we expect an agency to bill us. Unfortunately, we don't have all of the insight of what an agency is paying a provider these days. For some specialties, I have a general understanding. For others, it's a shot in the dark guess. So if you had questions, I'm happy to take those offline with you and talk it through and try to drive you in a reasonable direction. But I don't have a specific website or resource that I could send you to immediately that would say, here's what you're going to be looking for. Part of it is really shopping around and getting it for yourself.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Two more questions. Are most contracts a few days, a week, or more full-time?
That also depends on sometimes the specialty and sometimes the location and the need. For us, some of the subspecialties, especially surgical subspecialties like neurosurgery or general surgery, we'll find that our locum needs are geared more towards weekend call than they are towards general shift work. Other specialties such as primary care, hospitalist, ED, critical care, those are going to be geared a little bit more towards shift work, and often a week or two at a time, just because working 12-hour shifts 7 days in a row, it becomes a risk if they try to work you too many shifts in a row. So then they'll have to rotate people in and out. Primary care, it could be a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and then they would have you working for 2 years if that was what the assignment required or needed for whatever reason they have it open. So it's such a broad answer. I apologize.
All right. Thank you for the question, Chester. And we also have a question. How do I set up a meeting with a locums recruiter?
Well, there's two ways you can do it. If you post your resume out there, or your CV, I should say, you will get inundated with calls. So as soon as you post your CV on a job board, especially one of the major job boards, locums agencies will be reaching out to you to ask you if you're interested in the assignment, to ask if you want to chat. If you don't want to get bombarded, then you can go to the NALTO website, take a look at some of those agencies, maybe pick some that are in your geographic area. That might be a good place to start, or to pick some of the ones that are larger organizations. I can tell you, if you're looking at larger organizations that will represent you, CompHealth, Weatherby, locumtenens.com, Vista, Staff Care, those are all ones, Aya, those are all ones that I would say are probably a good place to start and have a good, strong national presence. Otherwise, you'll meet people at conferences, you'll meet people. So most of the agencies will have booths at conferences if you go to any of the national conferences, or if you post your CV out there, you will inevitably get calls. I will strongly recommend set up an email address specific to locums or your job searching. Also, possibly setting up a Google Voice number or something like that that's going to be a little bit more specific to that process. Because once you're in a database, you're in a database and they will reach out to you.
On the note of CVs, I want you all to know that the outreach team, myself and my team, offer free CV reviews. So if you would like a professional outsider's perspective to help you really take your CV to the next level, make sure it's streamlined, that it's formatted correctly, that your information is really positioning you in the best light, it would be absolutely our pleasure to offer that service to you. So we'll have our email at the end here, and we invite your CVs if you'd like the edits. On the subject of CVs, we're asked, can we send you our CVs, Nick, or should those CVs be submitted to health systems directly?
Yes. So can we send you our CVs for our health system? Yes. We have begun trying to recruit our own locums before we open it up to locum agencies. Again, the barrier for us is malpractice insurance. To combat that, we have partnered with one of our preferred vendors through an agreement that if we present them, essentially give them the business and say, hey, here's Dr. Smith. Dr. Smith is working hospitalist for these dates, making this much, make the assignment happen. We have a very, very competitive markup that they administer that we've pre-negotiated to make that happen for us, minimal so they can cover your malpractice and a couple other administrative pieces. And so that is a benefit to us. So yes, we do have that ability. Emily, I think one of your next slides has contact information. What I would ask is that with those inquiries and those introductions, feel free to drive them in this case through Emily's team, and we'll work with just getting contact with you and one of the locums consultants on my team for next step conversations and to just explore that a little bit further.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We have 2 minutes remaining. Are there any last questions? You're more than welcome to come off of mute. Okay, well, let's get that. One more thing to call out is that we have our next upcoming Power Hour, which is next month. That's going to be focused on loan repayment. So wanted to just call that out, that you'll be sending, or you will be receiving an invitation for that in the weeks ahead. Another resource to help you get out in front of loan repayment. But we greatly appreciate your participation today, and thank you, Nick, so much for your extensive wisdom, perspective, and insights, and for sharing that with us today. As mentioned, you can reach us directly at and for GME support at outreach@pscconnect.com. You can send us your CVs. You can send us applications for any direct applications for our health system and locums opportunities internally. So we are here to help on all fronts, and again, really appreciate your participation. All right, wishing you all a great week ahead. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.